What's up guys, Jared Spalding here. Today I'm going to be discussing what I genuinely believe to be the worst bench press tutorial on the entirety of YouTube. Now, before we get into this, let me give a little bit of background. So about a month ago, EDDF, or Every Damn Day Fitness, noticed something kind of interesting, or maybe it was more than a month ago, but he made this video around a month ago, I should say, basically exposing the YouTube channel V-Shreds for copying Athlean X, and it's been reported on to death. Everybody's talked about it. That is not what I'm talking about today. I think that he's a scumbag for copying Jeff, and not only copying him, but completely ruining the message Jeff gets across in his videos. I mean, if you watch them, it literally sounds like he was forced to write a story for English and use vocab words, but the vocab words were replaced with different terms he tries to use on human biology, and the English paper that he was being forced to write was replaced with a crappy video that is going to get you injured. So with all that being said, like I was trying to say before, I really am not here to discuss that at all, but rather just how terrible the advice he gives in his bench press video is. And it's a tutorial in the sense that it basically breaks down the entire form he believes you should be using. But the truth of the matter is, this form is going to get you injured. And before you say, well, you know, you're jealous or whatever, all that crap, no, I'm not. I genuinely care about people who are going to take this guy seriously and get injured or just make no progress following his regimen. From what I understand, I've never seen a video of him benching anything, you know, in the realm of what I bench, and I don't think he's as strong of a bencher as I am, which obviously his goal is to be shredded, and he is. I'm not gonna lie, he looks a lot better than I do. I'm not, you know, foolish to think that otherwise, but at the same time, that's not what this is about. This is about bench pressing, and that's my specialty. So let's get started.
As you press, your elbows are all the way out, you press together, and your elbows magically come together, and they're gonna be shortening that muscle and working your pectorals.
So this is how he's gonna start off explaining the bench for us. Your elbows magically come together, apparently. Okay, that's interesting. And also, that's the complete opposite of the form that's actually recommended. Really, what most people will tell you, what most actual strong benchers will tell you, I should say, is that when you're coming down, your elbows should be more tucked than when you come up. What really should be happening is as you come down, you should have your elbow a little bit more tucked, and then as you press up, bring the elbow out. And then your elbows don't magically come together. I mean, in reality, your elbows should be pretty much at, you know, like this much of an angle with your body, but if you are going to flare them out, it is going to be at the top of the press. Because at the top, it's going to become harder on your triceps, so by bringing out your elbow more, you'll be able to employ more chest for longer throughout the press, and therefore get a stronger bench.
Now with the bench press, or any kind of pressing movement, a lot of times what we find is that after you get off of a bench session, your shoulders are really sore, or it doesn't even necessarily mean it has to be bench. If you're even on dumbbells, your shoulders get sore, and maybe your chest isn't as sore as you wish it was. Why is that?
I can tell you exactly why that is. It's because of the fact that the bench is a compound movement, which you actually recognize in the video. So of course your chest isn't going to be the only thing that gets sore when you're benching. And your shoulders, I can tell you, are sore because you're flaring out your elbows so ridiculously bad. That's why. And you're not retracting your scapula. You see, the fact of the matter is, when you retract your scapula and when you bring your elbows in at least a little bit, you don't have to have them by your sides because that's actually a JM press and not a bench press anymore. But when you bring them in a little bit and you also make sure to really retract your scapula, you're actually going to be putting all the stress on your lats at the bottom of the bench, which is exactly where the stress should be putting. All the pressure should be your lats into the bench because that's going to provide you with more surface area to push against the bench when you are pressing back up, because as we all know, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when pushing into the bench, it helps you to push the bar away from yourself, thus allowing you to bench more and never putting any stress on the shoulder that's unnecessary.
Here, and then bring them down back farther, and that's going to work it better, because once you bring past level with your body, now all you're doing is putting your shoulder into a weakened position and therefore you're going to be losing that stimulation that you have on your chest and starting to hurt your shoulder a little bit here.
A couple of things. Again, first of all, when you retract your scapula and you push your chest up and form that natural arch in your back, you're going to be putting the stress on your lats. So no, that's not a dangerous thing to do to go down that far. And also, if you're putting your shoulders in a weakened position, wouldn't that mean that you're not actually putting more stress on your shoulders as you claim, but rather instead simply using your shoulder the entire time but not having as much strength to generate from the shoulder, which wouldn't that actually just simply cause you to fail the bench? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You're contradicting yourself. First, it's saying you're putting more stress on the shoulder and using the shoulder more, but then you're also saying that you're putting your shoulder in a weakened position. So which thing is it truly?
Instead of going down into bench press and going all the way down, hearing that you should touch your chest, people always say that when you're benching, you have to touch your chest just like this. Not true at all. I personally, and when I tell people to bench and they say that they can't get their chest to stimulate properly, I tell them to go down until their arms are at about a 90-degree angle and then press back up. And that right there is going to make a huge difference in the tension on your chest.
So now we've reached the point he's been building up to this entire time. He's trying to say that you should stop the bench when your elbow is 90 degrees with the body. And there's just so many mistakes with this. First of all, he labels the video as the biggest bench mistake you're making or whatever, but the bench press is defined by touching the chest and fully locking out the rep. So you're saying that it's a mistake to perform the exercise properly. In this entire video, you act like the bench is only meant for chest growth and that you should only be benching if you're trying to increase your chest. You never consider the fact that somebody may actually want to be genuinely stronger at the bench press. So obviously, there are certain benefits to doing things like not locking out reps all the way, and maybe bringing that down your hand past a certain point, you're not going to get as much activation of the chest anymore. However, in having your elbows flared out, having your scapula unretracted, and then stopping the weight at 90 degrees where the shoulder, you're saying, is just about to get targeted, all you're going to be doing is putting a ridiculous amount of stress on the shoulder joint, because your shoulders are what is going to be in part stopping the bench at this halfway point. Instead of touching your chest and having everything flexed at the bottom, everything contracted at the bottom of the bench that should be involved in the press, you're simply relying on your shoulders and your chest to just stop the weight halfway through. And what that's going to do is absolutely destroy your shoulders. Also, the other fact is that you are going to get certain benefits from going all the way down on the bench. There are going to be certain things such as a better stretch slightly, and beyond that, you're simply going to have a much, I suppose, safer bench session, because at the end of the day, that's what the bench is. And it's not some kind of exercise that is solely meant for bodybuilding purposes. It's not some kind of exercise that is meant to be done in different ways. The bench is meant to be an exercise where the bar touches the chest and it's fully locked out. So you're not benching anymore. All you're doing is not even a spoto press, just a half rep, I suppose, but you're doing the bench wrong. So that's the mistake, is benching halfway down, because you're not bench pressing anymore.
And you stop going all the way down to your chest because your high school football coach told you to touch your chest, and you stop doing that, you stop at 90 degrees, what you're going to find is that you are keeping that optimal tension, and also you're not going down and bouncing it off your chest and losing that tension, putting your shoulder into a bad position. You're going to maintain tension throughout the entire set, and it's going to allow you to get better stimulation of your chest muscles and probably help the health of your shoulder a little bit.
You know what else you'll find is going to help your shoulder health when you're benching? Simply using proper form. And the other thing I want to address here is that there is something called paused reps, where you don't bounce the bar off your chest. Just because you're touching your chest doesn't mean you have to bounce the bar. You can pause it on your chest, pause it, on your abdomen, wherever you find to be the most comfortable for you, and then press the weight up. And that's going to help you significantly in that it gives you a second to contract everything and to press that weight back up, and overall to prevent injury, as you're able to keep your scapula retracted at the bottom instead of bouncing and loosening your scapula. And you're also going to be able to use leg drive properly. You're going to be able to keep your arms in a better position, and overall going to be a lot safer than when you pulse the weight halfway up. I mean, not even really pulse, I guess just stop and then try to press back up. Like I said before, stopping the weight with your shoulder and your chest instead of stopping the weight with actual gravity from the bar touching your chest and not being able to go any farther. It's going to be a lot safer overall, and it's just going to be more beneficial to you. I mean, look at some of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. They all benched down to their chest. Now, they might not have locked out reps, which can make sense to me because of the fact that at the top it's more emphasis on the triceps. So if you're trying to get more of a chest pump, then I can see that. And I could, respect this video a little bit more if that's what he said, not to lock it out, maybe for elbow health, as well as for that constant tension on the chest by just barely, not locking out the rep and holding it at the top. But even then, that wouldn't allow you to bench more, because if you don't do that top part of the lift, obviously you're not going to be able to lock it out when you're trying to do a 1 rep max where it's required. So at the end of the day, this video is apparently not in any way meant to improve your bench or to increase your bench, but rather as a way to get a better pump out of it. But that's just simply not going to happen. You're just going to ruin your shoulders. You're going to not make any more progress. In fact, you're going to make less progress than you would have using proper form. I mean, you're talking about well over 100 years of millions of people doing this exercise. You're trying to reinvent something that doesn't need to be reinvented, something that you're bad at to begin with. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really, really hope that you don't follow any of the advice that this guy is giving you here. Obviously, he would be very good at making a video on, let's say, cutting, let's say being shredded, because he is shredded year-round. His physique is very impressive, but his bench press is an abomination. Peace.